It was a cool Friday evening in Milltown, a quiet southern suburb where everyone seemed to know everyone, or at least thought they did. 17-year-old Amira Williams had just finished a long week of honors classes, debate team practice, and volunteering at the local food bank. She wore her signature oversized hoodie and carried a leather-bound notebook tucked under one arm. Her sneakers squeaked softly on the polished floors of Milltown Station as she walked inside to meet her friends before heading to the Community Youth Forum. The station lobby buzzed with a mix of travelers and off-duty officers, their eyes occasionally glancing at the clock overhead. Amira approached the bulletin board by the entrance, searching for a flyer about the Youth Justice Program. That's when she heard it, a voice that cut through the ambient noise like a knife. "Hey! You there!" She turned. A tall, broad-shouldered white police officer was storming toward her, eyes narrowed, jaw clenched. Officer Darren Kroll, a name she'd only heard in hushed complaints from black families around town. "Can I help you?" Amira asked politely, blinking in confusion. "You don't belong here. What are you doing in this part of the station?" Amira straightened her back. "Waiting for friends. There's a youth forum at the courthouse annex in 20 minutes. Kroll looked her up and down, suspicion thick in his gaze. "Don't get smart with me. Let me see some ID." Amira hesitated. "Is there a reason you're stopping me?" Kroll stepped closer, invading her space. "Reason? You look like you're casing the place." Her mouth dropped open. "What? I'm a high school student." "Aha." He snatched the notebook from her hands. "Hey. That's private," she said, reaching for it. In a flash, his hand whipped through the air, crack. The sound echoed across the marble walls. Amira stumbled back, hand to her cheek, stunned more by the shock than the pain. Conversations around the room froze. Eyes turned. Gasps followed. "Let that be a lesson," Kroll growled, tossing her notebook to the ground. "Don't get mouthy with authority." Amira's vision blurred, but not from tears. Her body trembled with humiliation, fury, and disbelief. Every instinct told her to run, to scream, to hit back, but she clenched her fists and remained still. From across the lobby, someone yelled, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" The station doors burst open. A tall, commanding man in a navy blue suit strode in. His face was thunderclouds. His presence turned heads. It was Judge Malcolm Williams, Amira's father. 10 minutes earlier, Judge Williams had been finishing a meeting at the courthouse when his phone buzzed. A brief text from Amira. "At station. Getting flyers. Be at forum soon." He smiled. His daughter was everything he could have hoped for, driven, kind, brilliant. She had ambitions to study constitutional law, maybe even surpass his own career. He was proud of her in a way he rarely showed in public but made clear at home. As he walked out to his car, he received another message, but not from Amira. "Your daughter's being harassed at the station. Officer Kroll. Get here now. Camille, a courthouse clerk and family friend." His stomach dropped. Malcolm didn't run often, but he ran that day. "Dad?" Amira gasped. Malcolm's eyes locked on hers, then shifted to Kroll, still towering with arrogance and ignorance. "Did you just put your hands on my daughter?" the judge said, voice low and lethal. "She was being disrespectful and refused to identify herself," Kroll said defiantly. "Standard procedure." "She's a child," Malcolm growled. "A student. You assaulted her." Kroll folded his arms. "You people think you can walk around like you own this place." Dead silence fell. "You people." Malcolm repeated, stepping forward. Several onlookers, including officers and civilians, began recording with their phones. One young black woman was already calling internal affairs. Malcolm turned to his daughter. "Are you okay?" Amira nodded slowly, though her cheek was red and her eyes glassy. He slapped me when I questioned why I was being stopped. Malcolm's voice never rose. It didn't need to. Officer Kroll, you're suspended effective immediately, he said, pulling out his phone and dialing the precinct captain directly. I want your badge, your weapon, and your report handed over before midnight. You can't, Kroll started. Malcolm turned to a nearby officer. Do you want to be part of the lawsuit too? The officer quickly stepped in and relieved Kroll of his weapon and badge. Amira watched the chaos unfold in quiet awe. For the first time in her life, she understood not just the power her father held, but the restraint it took for him to wield it with grace. That night, social media exploded with the footage. Hashtags like #JusticeForAmira and #JudgeDad began trending. Within hours, news vans surrounded the Williams residence. Malcolm issued a brief statement demanding privacy as they pursued justice through formal channels. But inside their home, behind closed doors, the atmosphere was far from calm. I should have known this would happen, Malcolm said, pacing the living room. Milltown's been tolerating officers like Kroll for too long. And I let you walk into it. Dad, stop, Amira said gently. It's not your fault. You came for me. You always come for me. He sat beside her, taking her hand. You were brave, he said. But now, this is bigger than us. People saw. They know. Amira nodded. Then let's make sure they never forget. The next morning, the sun rose over Milltown with an eerie stillness. But online, the storm had already begun. The footage of Officer Darren Kroll slapping Amira Williams had gone viral overnight. News channels played it on loop. Talk shows debated it. Comment sections exploded with anger, support, racism, and everything in between. Malcolm Williams stood in his kitchen in a charcoal robe, coffee untouched in his hand, watching the morning news. He didn't flinch as the slap played again. He'd seen it 50 times already. But Amira was still asleep upstairs. Or at least pretending to be. The house phone rang. He picked up. Judge Williams. Malcolm, it's me, Judge Rena Carter. You okay? He sighed. Not really. But I'm moving. You'll need legal support. PR help. Maybe even security. I've seen stories like this spiral fast. I know. But I'm not letting this get swept under the rug. Rena's voice softened. You sure you're ready for this kind of fight? Malcolm looked at the paused TV frame, his daughter frozen mid-stagger, hand on her face. I'm not letting my daughter become another forgotten headline, he said. Not in the town I serve. At Milltown High, the halls buzzed with whispers as Amira walked through the front doors. Students stared. Some offered nods of respect. Others just looked uncomfortable. Her best friend, Kai, rushed to her side. Girl, you broke the internet, Kai whispered. Everyone's talking about it. I didn't ask to be famous, Amira muttered, eyes downcast. I know. But they're calling you brave. Strong. A symbol. I don't want to be a symbol, Kai. I just wanted to get a flyer. In history class, the teacher paused her lecture to ask if Amira wanted to speak about what happened. She shook her head. In the cafeteria, the usually crowded table where she and her friends sat had room to spare. Some kids were afraid of being seen, on one side or the other. Even worse, someone had scrawled, "Stop playing victim," on her locker in red marker. That evening, Amira slammed her bedroom door shut. Malcolm knocked gently. Can I come in? Do I have a choice? He walked in, hands folded behind his back. You okay? I'm not hungry. I'm not fine. I'm not in the mood for another press conference. He sat on her desk chair. I get it. But I also need you to know, what you're feeling, it matters. You don't have to be okay right now. Amira looked at him. People either hate me or want to use me. I don't. I know. But I didn't ask for this. I didn't sign up to be a movement. Malcolm was quiet for a moment. No one does. But when it comes for you, you have a choice: run from it, or guide it somewhere meaningful. She looked down at her notebook, the one Kroll had thrown. Then guide it with me. Don't do it for me. Do it with me. He smiled. Deal. Meanwhile, Officer Darren Kroll was holed up in his apartment, blinds drawn, pacing like a caged animal. His suspension had come down hard, pending investigation, stripped of badge, no pay. He scrolled through his phone, looking at news reports, conservative blog posts defending him, hate messages pouring in, and photos of his face plastered across the internet like a wanted criminal. This is out of control, he muttered, slamming the phone down. His brother, Gavin, sat nearby sipping beer. You should have kept your cool, man. It's a new world now. Everyone's filming everything. I didn't do anything wrong, Kroll growled. She was being disrespectful. She's 17. She had an attitude. You slapped a black girl in a public space. Her dad's a judge. What did you think would happen? Kroll didn't answer. But his eyes burned with resentment. I'll fight this, he muttered. She'll regret taking me down. The next week, the Williams family attorney filed formal charges. Assault of a minor, misconduct under color of law, and violation of civil rights. A citywide protest bloomed outside Milltown Station. Thousands gathered, signs in hand, chants echoing. Justice for Amira. Protect our youth. Power doesn't excuse violence. At the front of the march, Amira stood silently with her father and Kai. Cameras surrounded them. But this time, Amira didn't flinch. One reporter shouted, Amira, do you feel safe now? She looked him dead in the eye. I feel seen. But I won't feel safe until black girls stop being treated like threats. Judge Williams added, this is not about revenge. It's about accountability. About a system that must change. Their words echoed not just in Milltown, but across the country. And inside the walls of the station, officers were taking sides. Some rallied behind Kroll. Others quietly agreed he'd gone too far. But one thing was certain, this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The air was thick with tension as people poured into the Milltown Municipal Court, journalists, activists, law students, and everyday citizens, all eager to witness the beginning of what had become one of the most talked about civil rights cases in recent town history. Amira sat quietly at the plaintiff's table beside her attorney, Marla Denton, a fierce civil rights lawyer from Atlanta who had flown in to personally handle the case. Amira's father, Judge Malcolm Williams, sat in the row behind her, this time not wearing the robe of power, just a father's pride, fear, and resolve. Across the courtroom, Officer Darren Kroll sat stiffly at the defense table. His suit barely fit, and the scowl he wore betrayed his contempt for the cameras flashing in his direction. Beside him, his lawyer, a local defense attorney known for representing police officers in misconduct cases, whispered instructions. Judge Rena Carter presided over the case. Her eyes scanned the courtroom before addressing both parties. This is a preliminary hearing, she said firmly, but let me be clear, courtroom decorum will be enforced, and I will not tolerate interruptions. This case is high profile, but justice is never a performance. Gasps and murmurs from the crowd fell silent at her words. The prosecutor presented the body cam footage, what little there was. Kroll had conveniently forgotten to activate his body camera, but cell phone footage from bystanders played on screens around the courtroom. There was the moment of confrontation. The slap. The sound of the notebook hitting the floor. The gasp from Amira. The immediate arrival of her father, voice like thunder. The moment was etched now in history. Marla Denton stood. Your Honor, this isn't just about a slap. This is about abuse of power, racial profiling, and the reckless treatment of black children in public spaces by those sworn to protect them. Amira Williams is a child, not a threat. Kroll's lawyer pushed back. Officer Kroll followed protocol when confronting someone in a restricted area. Ms. Williams was uncooperative. She asked why she was being stopped. Marla interrupted. That is not uncooperative. That is constitutional. Judge Carter raised a brow. Ms. Denton. Mr. Vickers. You will both maintain order. We proceed with facts, not emotion. But emotions were already on fire. Outside the courthouse, protesters gathered again. Amira's face appeared on signs, murals, and shirts. Some called her Little Rosa. Others simply wrote her name in bold black ink. Across the country, news anchors debated the case every night. Schools held forums. Celebrities tweeted support. But the internet, as always, was divided. One video of a commentator screaming, "This girl is not a hero, she's just a smart mouth," had millions of views. Another video, showing Amira quietly reciting the Bill of Rights from memory, was even more viral. Inside her own mind, Amira felt like she was being pulled in 1,000 directions. At night, she lay in bed staring at the ceiling. "I'm not a hero," she whispered to herself. "I'm just tired of being a target." Her dad knocked on the door. "You okay?" She nodded, eyes still fixed upward. "Do you think people are actually listening?" "I think some are," he said. "But some only listen when the fire gets close enough to burn them." She sat up. "So we keep the fire going." He smiled. "With truth. With grace. And with a damn good legal team." A week later, Kroll's defense tried to flip the narrative. They released a fabricated complaint that Amira had previous behavioral issues, citing an old detention slip for talking back to a substitute teacher. They claimed she showed a pattern of defiance toward authority. News outlets picked it up. Commentators pounced. "Is this really the role model everyone's lifting up?" one talking head asked. But the town wasn't buying it. Milltown High's principal held a press conference defending Amira's character. Her teachers submitted letters describing her as brilliant, respectful, and a future leader. Even the substitute teacher, now retired, sent in a video message. She asked a question about the assignment. "That's not defiance, that's intellect." The smear campaign backfired. In response, Amira posted a raw, unfiltered video on social media. "I'm not perfect. I'm not bulletproof. But I know I didn't deserve what happened to me. And if my voice can help stop it from happening to someone else, I'll keep using it." It was quiet. Honest. No edits. And it struck a chord. Millions watched. Millions wept. And thousands more joined the movement. Hashtags like #BlackGirlsAreNotThreats and #ProtectAmira trended for days. Back in court, Judge Carter reviewed the motion to dismiss filed by Kroll's defense. After a long pause, she looked over her glasses. "This court finds the video evidence, corroborating witness accounts, and the context sufficient to proceed to trial." Motion denied. A wave of relief swept through Amira and her legal team. Malcolm closed his eyes for a brief moment, his hand resting on his daughter's shoulder. But even with that victory, Amira knew, the real battle was still ahead. The trial would begin in a month. And she would have to testify. Under oath. Under pressure. Under the spotlight of the entire nation. But this time, she wouldn't be standing alone. She had the truth. She had the people. And most of all, she had the gavel in her blood. The trial date arrived with a weight Amira could feel in her chest. For weeks, her life had been dissected, her interviews analyzed, her social media picked apart, and her privacy shattered. But now, the moment had come. She was going to take the stand. Inside the packed courtroom, every seat was filled. Outside, a sea of protesters stood with signs and chants, a peaceful wall of support. Some wore shirts that read, "I am Amira." Others held signs saying, "Our girls deserve safety." Reporters filled the back row. Cameras clicked, pens scratched, and whispers rippled like wind through wheat. But at the center of it all sat Amira, silent, still, but ready. "Your Honor," said the prosecutor, rising, "we call Amira Williams to the stand." She stood slowly, her legs trembling under the pressure, but her head held high. She walked past the defense table, past Kroll's sneering gaze, and climbed the witness stand. The bailiff swore her in. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" "I do." She looked out at the courtroom. Her father met her eyes, nodding. She took a breath. "Miss Williams," the prosecutor began gently, "can you tell the court what happened that evening at Milltown Station?" Amira's voice was clear, but soft. "I went there to get flyers for the youth forum. I was meeting friends. I was by the bulletin board when Officer Kroll approached me. He demanded ID. I asked why. He accused me of casing the place. When I reached for my notebook back, he slapped me." The courtroom was quiet. The kind of silence that doesn't beg to be broken. "And how did you feel in that moment?" Amira swallowed. "Small. Like I didn't matter. Like my words weren't worth anything. But more than that. I felt angry. Not just for me, but for every black girl who's been treated like a threat just for being." Kroll's attorney rose. "Miss Williams, is it true you've had issues with authority in the past?" "I asked a substitute teacher a question in 10th grade, Amira replied. That's the only record they could find." A ripple of quiet laughter ran through the courtroom. "You felt disrespected, sure. But were you injured?" "I didn't bleed, if that's what you mean. But that slap hurt deeper than my cheek. It told me my voice didn't matter. That my presence was suspicious. That my skin was the threat." The defense attorney tried to cut in. "Objection." "Overruled," Judge Carter said coldly. Amira continued, voice unwavering now. "My dad is a judge. That night, he walked in seconds after it happened. But what if he hadn't? What if no one had seen it? What if I was alone?" She looked directly at Kroll now. "You thought I was just a black girl. Powerless. Forgettable. But I'm not. And I won't be silent." The courtroom erupted, gasps, murmurs, claps, until Judge Carter banged her gavel. "Order." Amira stepped down from the stand. As she passed the defense table, Kroll looked away. Because for the first time, he felt what she had, small. Outside the courthouse, the crowd roared as Amira emerged with her father. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. But she didn't stop to speak. She just walked. Head high. Shoulders square. Because now, the world had heard her truth. Inside, Kroll sat slumped in his chair, his lawyer whispering damage control strategies. The trial wasn't over. But momentum had shifted, heavily. Back at home that night, Amira sat on the porch swing. Her dad joined her, handing her a mug of tea. "You were incredible today," he said. "I was terrified." He smiled. "That's what courage is." She took a sip. "I don't want this to be the end." "It won't be. Not if you keep using your voice." She looked out at the stars, then back at him. "Maybe I will." He leaned back. "You know, I became a judge to change the system from within." "I know," she said. "But I think I want to change it from the outside." He looked at her, eyes full of pride. "Then I'll be right behind you." They sat in silence, the cool wind brushing through the leaves. For the first time in weeks, Amira felt peace. She had faced injustice. She had faced fear. And she had faced the system, not as a victim, but as a voice. One that refused to be silenced. The courthouse was quieter than usual. Gone were the protest chants and flashing cameras from the early days of the trial. Now, the world was watching from afar, waiting for the outcome. For Amira and her father, this final day brought a strange calm, not peace, but purpose. Amira stood in the hallway just outside the courtroom, dressed in a deep navy blouse, her curls pulled back neatly. Her hands trembled slightly, tucked into her sleeves. Judge Malcolm Williams stood beside her, straightening her collar with the same tenderness he used when she was a little girl getting ready for her first spelling bee. "You did everything right," he said. "I just hope it was enough." It was. "No matter what happens today, remember, you already won." She smiled faintly. "Because I stood up. Because you didn't let fear make you sit down." They walked through the doors together. Inside, the courtroom was already packed. Reporters occupied the rear benches. The jury. 7 women, 5 men, racially diverse, sat stoically at their box, hands folded. Judge Rena Carter entered and took her seat. "Have the members of the jury reached a verdict?" The forewoman, a soft-spoken Latina schoolteacher, stood. "We have, Your Honor." Every heart in the room seemed to stop. "On the charge of assault on a minor under color of authority, how do you find the defendant?" "We find the defendant guilty." A gasp shot through the courtroom. Kroll's face dropped, color draining from it. His attorney looked down in defeat. "On the charge of civil rights violation, how do you find the defendant?" "Guilty." Amira squeezed her father's hand under the table. Her eyes didn't leave the jury. "Thank you," she whispered. Judge Carter nodded firmly. "Sentencing will be scheduled at a later date. Officer Darren Kroll is to be taken into custody immediately." 2 bailiffs stepped forward. Kroll stood, tried to speak, but no one listened. The cuffs clicked around his wrists. His time was over. For once, justice didn't just knock. It entered. Outside, the world waited, holding its breath. When Amira and her father walked out of the courthouse, a hush fell over the crowd. Reporters surged forward. "Amira. How do you feel? What does this mean for other victims?" She stepped up to the microphones, her voice steady. "This wasn't just about me. It was about every black girl who's ever been told to stay quiet. Every one of us who's been overlooked, dismissed, or harmed. Today, the system listened. Today, the gavel came down for us, not on us." Applause broke out in waves. Tears rolled down cheeks. Some held signs reading, "Amira for Congress," half joking, half serious. She stepped back, letting her father speak next. "Justice isn't perfect," Malcolm said, "but it's our job to keep pushing it forward. My daughter reminded this city that silence is not strength. She reminded me, too." A week later, Amira stood in front of Milltown High's packed auditorium. She was invited to speak at the town's Youth Leadership Summit. She wore a blazer this time, a small gold pin shaped like a gavel on her lapel. "I didn't choose this path," she began, "but when it came, I walked it. Not because I'm brave all the time, but because I was more scared of doing nothing. What happened to me could have happened to anyone. And for too many, it already has." The students listened, rapt. "So I challenge you," she continued. "Speak up. Step in. Don't wait for someone with a title. Be the one who does something." She stepped down to a standing ovation. Months later, Kroll's sentence was handed down: 2 years in prison, loss of pension, permanent removal from law enforcement. It wasn't everything. But it was more than most ever got. Amira, meanwhile, was invited to speak at panels, youth events, and national forums on justice reform. She declined many, but not all. She chose when and how to speak now. And every time she did, her voice rang out stronger. She'd even begun writing her story, the first chapter titled, "He Didn't Know Who I Was, But Now They All Do." On a quiet evening back at home, Amira and her father sat on the porch again. "Still want to change the system from the outside?" he asked. She nodded. "Still do." He grinned. "You've already started." They sat together in silence, not needing words. The fight wasn't over, but neither were they. And from that day forward, Milltown remembered the slap, but more importantly, it remembered the girl who stood up.